You're standing at your back patio right now, and you can feel it. That window across the way, that neighbor who always seems to be out watering when you sit down with your coffee. You don't want a war. You just want to sit in your own yard without an audience. Here's the truth: nobody selling you a fence wants to say out loud, you do not need a fence. You do not need $6,000 of cedar and a permit and 3 weekends of your life. The most effective privacy I have ever created for people started with a cart full of stuff from the Dollar Tree, and it read as more expensive than the vinyl fence going up next door. I've been in this trade a long time. I've walked thousands of backyards, quoted the fences, installed the screens, and ripped out the sad little privacy attempts that fell apart in one season. And I'm going to confess something to you. For years I told people the answer was always more materials, more money, more structure. I was wrong. The cheapest fixes, done in the right spot, beat the expensive ones almost every time. So I'm counting these down from the useful to the one that changes everything. Stick with me to the last one, because the number one trick is a thing I learned by accident on a job where the homeowner had almost no budget, and it blocks more Sightline for under $20 than a fence does for thousands. It works whether you're staying in that house for 20 years or trying to sell it next spring. Let me show you what I've seen with my own eyes. Let's start at the bottom of the list, with the one most people reach for first, because it's the easiest to grab off the shelf. Faux greenery panel. You've seen these. The little squares of plastic ivy or boxwood that clip together, and Dollar Tree and the dollar aisles carry versions of them for $1 or $2 a piece. People buy a stack, zip tie them to a railing or an old section of chain link, and call it a privacy wall. And here's the thing, it can look great, or it can look like the saddest thing on the block. The difference is one detail almost nobody gets right. Cheap faux greenery reads as cheap for exactly one reason: the color. Straight out of the package, that plastic ivy is a flat, uniform, radioactive green. Real leaves are never one color. A real hedge has dark green, light green, a little yellow, a little brown, and shadow underneath. When every single leaf on your panel is the identical shade of lime, your brain flags it as fake from 30 feet away, and fake reads as cheap. So here's what I do, and it costs nothing. Before I hang them, I take those panels out into the actual sun and leave them for 2 or 3 weeks, flipping them once. The sun knocks that flat green down into something softer and more believable. Even better, I mix in a few stems of a slightly different shade, which you can grab from the same store, so the wall has variation. And I never hang them flat against a wall. I hang them where a little real light gets behind them, so you get real shadow and depth. That one move, depth and color variation, is the entire difference between a wall that whispers boutique hotel and one that screams dollar store. Now faux greenery has a ceiling. It blocks a view, but it doesn't grow, it doesn't move in the wind, and up close, it's still plastic. It's a starter. It buys you privacy this weekend while the better stuff fills in. But if that's all you do, you're leaving the biggest win on the table, because the next thing on my list does something the plastic never can. It makes your yard feel bigger while it hides you. That brings me to the potted vertical layer, and this is where cheap starts to look genuinely expensive. Here's a mistake I watched a homeowner make that still bugs me. He wanted privacy, so he lined up 8 identical little pots in a straight row, all the same height, all the same plant. From his patio, it looked like a fence made of flower pots. Flat, boring, and it didn't even block the view, because everything was the same low height. He'd spent real money and gained nothing. Privacy from plants is not about a wall. It's about layers at different heights that your eye can't see through. So here's what actually works. And the dollar stores make it stupid cheap. You grab the tallest planters they carry, and you grab a few cheap plant stands or even upside-down buckets to raise some pots higher than others. You want 3 heights minimum. Something tall in the back, something medium, something spilling over the front. When your eye hits 3 layers stacked at different depths, it can't find the gap, and that's privacy. But the bigger trick is what it does to the space. Layered planting makes a small patio feel like a lush, private room instead of an exposed slab, and the numbers back this up in a way that matters if you ever sell. There's research out of Virginia Tech showing that quality landscaping can add somewhere between 5 and 12% to a home's value, and layered, dimensional plantings are exactly what appraisers and buyers read as quality. A Clemson University study on landscape economics found that moving from good landscaping to excellent landscaping could raise perceived home value by 6 to 7% on its own. You are not just hiding from your neighbor. You are building the thing that makes a buyer's jaw drop when they walk into the backyard. Now, the honest catch. Real plants in pots need water, and in the heat of summer a small pot dries out fast. So I tell people to buy the biggest containers they can, because more soil holds more water, and to drop a layer of cheap mulch on top, which every dollar store carries. That mulch cuts your watering in half, and this is the sneaky part. It makes a $2 plant look like it came from a garden center. Bare dirt in a pot reads as neglect. Mulch reads as care. But here's the tension. Plants and greenery block a view straight ahead. They do nothing for the angle that actually exposes most people, which is the upstairs window or the raised deck looking down into your space. Therefore, we need to go up and overhead, and that's the next level. The overhead layer. This is the one almost nobody thinks of, and it's the reason your backyard still feels exposed even after you've screened the sides. Let me paint it for you. You put up a nice screen along the fence line, you sit down, and you still feel watched. Why? Because the neighbor's second story, or their deck, or even just the wide open sky and their bedroom window, all of it looks down into your patio from above. A side screen never touches that angle. I've had clients spend a fortune on side privacy and still not understand why they felt like they were on a stage. The fix is shockingly cheap. Outdoor curtains and overhead cover. Dollar stores carry shower curtains, tension rods, and lightweight fabric panels for a couple dollars each. You'd be amazed how many so-called outdoor curtain setups on fancy patios are secretly plastic shower curtains and a tension rod. You run a rod between two posts, two existing fence posts, two tall planters with poles, whatever you've got, and you hang panels you can slide open and closed. Suddenly you control the view. Open when you want the breeze, closed when the neighbor's having a barbecue and you want to disappear. And the overhead piece? Even a simple stretch of fabric, or a run of cheap bamboo blind material, angled over the corner where you sit, kills the downward sightline from above. And, bonus, it throws shade. This is the trick high-end designers use and charge 4 figures for. They call it creating a room without walls. You're doing it for the price of 2 lattes. Here's the show, not tell part. When someone walks into a backyard that has an overhead element, even a cheap one, their shoulders drop. They feel held, enclosed, safe. A flat, open patio with no ceiling feels like a parking lot no matter how nice the furniture is. That feeling of enclosure is worth real money, and it costs almost nothing to fake. Now let me stop you, because I know exactly what some of you are thinking right now. You're thinking this whole video is for people with time and a cute little patio, and your situation is bigger or uglier, or you're just trying to sell the place, and you don't care how it feels, you care what it returns. Stay with me, because this next part is built specifically for you, and it's the part that serves both of you at once. The person staying and the person selling. Here is the fix that costs the least, needs zero contractor, and pays off whether you're planting roots or planting a for sale sign. The tension rod and drop cloth screen, plus a solar light run. Follow me on this. For under $20 total, you can build a freestanding privacy screen that reads as a designer feature. You take 2 tall planters, the tallest the dollar store has. Fill them with something heavy at the bottom like rocks or sand, and stand a length of PVC pipe or a wooden dowel in each. You run a rod or wire between them, and you hang fabric, drop cloth, outdoor curtain, or even a bamboo blind. You've just made a movable wall that blocks a specific sightline and requires no digging, no permit, no post holes, and no permanent change to the property. That last part matters if you rent, or if you're selling and don't want to spend on something that stays behind. Now here's why it serves the seller too. When a buyer walks a backyard and feels exposed, they mentally subtract the cost of building privacy. They stand there thinking, I'd have to put a fence in, and that's $5,000 or $6,000, and that number comes straight off what they're willing to offer. But when they walk into a yard that already feels private and finished, that subtraction never happens. You've removed the objection before they can form it. The National Association of Realtors has reported that strong outdoor and curb appeal features can return a huge share of their cost at resale, And privacy screening is one of the cheapest ways to trigger that reaction. You're spending $20 to protect thousands in offer price. And here's the piece that ties it together for both of you. Lighting. Dollar stores are full of solar stake lights and solar string lights now, usually $1 to a few dollars each. You line them along the base of your screen, or you weave string lights across the top of your fabric, and something almost magical happens after dark. The light hits your screen and your plants, and it stops your eye right there. You literally cannot see past a lit surface into the darkness behind it. So at night, when neighbors are most likely to glance over from their bright kitchen window, your yard becomes a glowing private box and theirs becomes the fishbowl. Privacy that works in reverse after sunset, for the price of a few solar lights that charge themselves for free. That's the everybody wins fix. It's cheap, it's movable, it looks expensive, and it protects your resale number. But it's still not the number one thing, because everything I've told you so far assumes you know where to put it. And that, right there, is where almost everyone gets it wrong, including me for years. Before I give you the top of the list, let me hand you something that pulls all of these tricks into one place. You just watched a plastic panel from the dollar aisle read as boutique or read as cheap based on one detail, and you're probably standing there wondering which of your own moves are quietly making the whole yard look neglected instead of finished. That guessing is exactly what I put an end to in the Complete Curb Appeal System, my 3-volume playbook. First Look walks you through the hierarchy of impact, so you spend every single dollar in the right order instead of grabbing whatever's on the shelf first. Yard Elevated hands you the luxury signal framework and the elimination protocol, so you can strip out the little things that are silently making your yard look cheap and add only what reads as expensive. And the Yard System gives you the templates and the done-for-you cases to copy straight into your own space. Here's a check you can run tonight, for free, before you spend a dime. Go stand at your patio and count how many of your objects are just floating alone with nothing matched around them. That's the framing gap, and the book shows you the fix. And the whole thing promises what the landing lays out plainly. A neglected front yard turned into your home's biggest asset for under $500 with no landscaper. So go verify that claim for yourself. The fastest way to get the books is to scan the QR code right there on your screen, or go to the link in the description, or the pinned comment. And since you're already out in the yard this season with the light and the growing weather on your side, there's no better window to do the work once and do it right. Now, back to the yard, because there's one more piece that decides whether any of this actually works. Before I give you the top of the list, let me hit the second most important one, because it makes the number one work: the frame. Here's the confession. Cheap privacy stuff looks cheap not because it's cheap, but because it's floating. A lonely screen stuck in the middle of a yard with nothing around it looks temporary and sad no matter what it's made of. The single move that makes dollar store materials read as a design, permanent, expensive feature is framing and repetition. Let me explain what I mean by framing. When you put a screen up, you flank it, a tall planter on each end, a pair of matching pots at the base, a light on each side, anything that says this was placed on purpose and belongs here. The human eye trusts symmetry and pairs. When it sees two matching planters bracketing a screen, it stops asking whether the thing is cheap and starts reading it as intentional. Intentional is the whole game. Cheap and intentional looks custom. Expensive and random looks like a mistake. And repetition. If you use one bamboo blind, use the same bamboo blind in 2 or 3 spots around the yard so it looks like a system, not a patch. I had a client, tight budget, who bought the exact same style of dollar store lantern, 6 of them, and spaced them evenly around her patio. 6 identical lanterns. That's it. And every person who walked in asked her where she had the yard professionally designed. She didn't. She just understood that repetition reads as a plan, and a plan reads as money. One of anything looks like a leftover. 3 of the same thing looks like a decision. Here's why this matters more than the materials themselves. You can buy the nicest screen in the world, and if it's floating alone and mismatched with everything around it, it looks cheap. You can buy the cheapest plastic panel on the shelf, frame it with matching planters, repeat the theme, add a light on each side, and people will assume you spent real money. The framing is worth more than the object. That's the part the designers know, and the part your landscaper has no reason to tell you, because framing is free, and framing doesn't put anything on his invoice. So now you've got layers, you've got overhead, you've got movable screens, you've got framing and repetition. You have everything except the one thing that decides whether any of it actually works. And this is the number one, the thing I learned the hard way on a job I'll never forget. Here it is. Privacy is not about height. It's about the sight line. And you build your screen close to where you sit, not out at the property line. Let me tell you how I learned this. Years ago, I had a homeowner. Small budget, big problem. Two-story house behind her looking straight down into her patio. She wanted a fence. I ran the numbers, and a fence tall enough to help was going to be expensive, and honestly, it still wouldn't have blocked a second-story window because you can't legally or practically build a fence that tall. We were stuck. So, almost out of frustration, I grabbed a cheap screen and stood it up right next to her chair, maybe 3 feet from where her head would be. And I sat down in the chair, and the window vanished. Completely gone. A little screen barely taller than her head, 3 feet away, blocked a window that a 10-foot fence 40 feet away couldn't touch. That's the whole secret. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. It's just geometry. A small object close to your eye blocks a huge area far away. Hold your thumb up in front of your face, and you can blot out an entire building across the street. Move your thumb to arm's length and it barely covers a window. Same thumb. The only thing that changed is the distance from your eye. Your privacy screen is the thumb, so everybody builds privacy in the exact wrong place. They put it at the edge of the property, as far from themselves as possible, where it has to be enormous to do anything. The trade does it that way because that's where fences go and that's what gets sold. But you don't sit at the edge of your property. You sit at your patio, at your chair, at your favorite spot. And if you put a modest screen between that spot and the specific window or angle that bothers you, 3, 4, 5 feet from where your head actually is, you block that sightline completely with something small, cheap, and easy. This is why the dollar store approach doesn't just save money, it works better. You don't need a wall. You need to interrupt one line, the line between your eyes and their eyes. Go sit in your yard, right now, in the exact chair you actually use. Look at the exact window or spot that makes you feel watched. That line from your eyes to theirs is the only line that matters. Now imagine a screen 3 feet in front of you crossing that line. That's where it goes, not at the fence. Right there, close to you. I've now done this on more yards than I can count, and it feels like a magic trick every time. A $4 screen, placed on the sightline near the seat, outperforms the thousands of dollars of fencing sitting uselessly at the property edge. And here's the part that pays you back if you sell. When you build small and close, you can make that screen beautiful. Because it's small. Real plants, nice fabric, good lights, all concentrated in one small, gorgeous private nook instead of spread thin across a giant expensive wall. Buyers walk into that nook and fall in love. You created an intimate, private retreat, the single most desired backyard feature in survey after survey, and you did it with a cart from the dollar store and an understanding of geometry that your contractor never bothered to explain. Let me put a finer point on why nobody told you this. There's no money in it for the people you'd normally ask. A screen that costs $4 and takes 10 minutes doesn't feed a fence crew. Sightline placement isn't a product anybody stocks. The whole industry is built around selling you more material to cover more area, when the truth is you need less material and a smarter spot. I sold fences for years, without ever once telling a customer they could solve it for $20 by moving the screen closer to their chair. Because honestly, I didn't fully understand it myself until that little screen made a second-story window disappear right in front of me. Now you have it, for free. And you can walk out to your yard this weekend and prove it to yourself in about 5 minutes. So let's bring it home. Everything stacks. Fix the color on your faux greenery so it stops screaming plastic. Layer your pots at 3 heights so the eye can't find the gap. Add something overhead so you're not on a stage for the upstairs window. Build a movable screen for $20 and light it so your yard glows and theirs becomes the fishbowl after dark. Frame everything with matching pairs and repeat your theme so cheap reads as custom. And above all, place your screen on the sightline, close to where you actually sit. Because a small thing near you beats a giant thing far away every single time. Here's what I really want you to feel. You were about to spend thousands, and maybe lose a weekend and a chunk of your sanity, on a fence that wouldn't even solve the problem. You just got the version that works better for the price of lunch. That's not being cheap. That's being the homeowner who refuses to get talked into money you don't need to spend on your own property for a problem a $20 cart can fix. And if that's who you are, the kind of person who'd rather hear the blunt truth from the guy in the truck than a polished sales pitch from someone measuring your yard for a quote, then you're my kind of person. So do me a favor. Tell me in the comments which one you're guilty of. Be honest. Was it the flat plastic ivy? The straight boring row of identical pots? Or were you about to build the whole thing at the property line, 40 feet from where you actually sit? Drop it below, and tell me what town or country you're watching from, because I read these and I love seeing where you all are. And if you'd rather stand with the homeowners who refuse to get fleeced on their own land than get sold to, subscribe and stick around. Because next I'm going to show you the 3 plants people put right by their front door that quietly tell every buyer this house has been neglected, and the cheap swap that does the opposite. You're going to want to check your own porch before somebody else notices. I'll see you there. I hope this gave you a real head start out there. Honestly, this video showed you the overview, but inside my membership, the Curb Appeal Circle, I pick up right where I left off and walk you through the full weekend setup. In there, you can ask me your own question, and a real person answers, not a machine. You belong here with us. Point your phone's camera at the code. Cancel anytime. 1 click. Now that your yard feels private, let's make it look expensive too. I'll show you 10 more simple, budget-friendly touches that give your whole space a rich, polished feel. It's starting right here.